She still watches you silently through her phone screen every night, but she will absolutely never text first. And many men make the same mistake. They believe that if she's still watching, she still wants to come back. But the cold truth is more complex. In the game of emotions, what is held onto most tightly isn't longing, it's leverage. The person who speaks first often feels they have diminished their own power. Welcome back to Stoic Journey, where we don't seek temporary comfort but forge the strength to look directly at the truth. Before we go further, hit subscribe, take a second to like, and comment. I am the master of my emotions. That isn't just an action, it's an internal declaration. You choose self-control over being led by someone else's silence. If you have ever been treated as if you don't exist by someone who once said they loved you, you know how cold that feels. But silence is rarely accidental. It can be a test. It can be a way to see if you are still willing to give chase. And the moment you rush to react, you have handed back your power. Today, we aren't discussing how to make her text first. We are discussing how to reach a point where you no longer need that text. Take a deep breath, because silence is not an empty space. It is a message. And sometimes, non-reaction is the most powerful statement a man who knows his worth can make. 1. The brutal truth about silence. There are nights when the only light in her room is the glow of her phone. She scrolls through old photos, reads every status update, and her heart flickers when your name appears. But no message will be sent. Men often believe that if someone misses you, they will find a way back. The truth is harsher. Sometimes people choose silence not because they lack feelings, but because they refuse to lose their position. On social media, the script is familiar. You post a new moment, she views it instantly but leaves no trace. This isn't entirely unconscious. It's a way to maintain distance while staying present. If you start analyzing every move, waiting for the smallest signal, you have surrendered control of your emotions to something vague. A conscious man does not busy himself decoding half-hearted signals. He understands that silence is also an answer. Someone who truly wants to stay will take action, not watch from the sidelines. Therefore, the lesson isn't about making her react. It's about you ceasing to react to the void. When you stop providing fuel for that silent curiosity, when you truly move forward instead of creating a silence just to be noticed, you reestablish your boundaries. At that point, your silence isn't a tactic. It's an expression of self-mastery. A man who knows his value doesn't need to prove it with words, and he certainly doesn't need to chase someone who has chosen to stand outside of his life. 2. The psychology of power. Behind silence, there is often more than just sadness. There is an invisible tug-of-war for power. The hardest part to accept isn't that she doesn't text, but the possibility that you no longer control how you react to it. Many people don't truly miss a person. They miss the feeling of being a priority, of being important, and of having influence over someone else's emotions. When that feeling is shaken, defensive instincts kick in. Many breakups don't happen in a single explosive moment. They are the result of a silent withdrawal. When someone feels they are no longer at the center of your world, they begin to distance themselves for self-preservation. If you respond with panic, constant explanations, or attempts to prove your worth, you inadvertently confirm that your emotional state is still dependent on them. Look at reality. The man who loses his attraction is often the man who loses his focus. When you place her above your goals, your ideals, and your personal dignity, you are no longer the grounded man you once were. And when that stability is gone, respect begins to fade. The shift begins when you withdraw your attention, not to cause panic, not to manipulate, but to reestablish your inner order. When you truly move on, not seeking validation, not trying to read into every minor action, you render the power game meaningless. Presence can become a habit, but self-mastery is irreplaceable. And it is that very self-mastery that forms the foundation of enduring attraction. In the next part, we will dive deeper into a fundamental law of attraction. Why internal independence is always more powerful than any effort to hold on. 3. The law of attraction. In the world of attraction, there is a law few acknowledge. The person who is less emotionally dependent often holds more decision-making power. Attraction is rarely sustained by promises or repetitive romantic gestures. It thrives on the feeling of not being fully possessed, of not being entirely certain. When someone knows for sure that you are still waiting, that you still put them at the center, the element of challenge vanishes, and with it, desire cools. Observe what often happens. The man who always responds immediately, who always explains himself whenever there's conflict, believes he is showing sincerity. But if your attention is always available, it loses its value. In contrast, the man who maintains his own rhythm of life, who doesn't rush to prove himself or hold on, creates a natural magnetic pull. Not because he is cold, but because he has a center of gravity. Attraction doesn't come from how good you are, but from the degree to which you maintain your identity and independence. Every time you try to fill the void with a text or an explanation, you are placing your value in someone else's response. And when your value depends on that response, the scales immediately tip. The core lesson isn't about making someone anxious or afraid of losing you. The lesson is to build a life stable enough that you don't need to check who is watching you. When you truly focus on your goals, on your own empire, your absence is no longer a tactic. It is the natural consequence of being a man with direction. The question isn't how she will react. The question is, do you have enough discipline to maintain that self-mastery to the end? In the next part, we will analyze the true power of disappearing the right way, not to manipulate, but to solidify your inner position. 4. The weapon of absence. Once you have gained enough discipline to stop depending on her responses, the next step is far more difficult. Turning your absence into a definitive boundary. Absence is not running away. It is a conscious withdrawal to preserve your own value. When you stop appearing, stop explaining, and stop trying to maintain a broken thread, you force the other person to face a simple reality. They no longer have free access to your life. Men often believe that just one well-timed word or one sincere message can save everything. But when the emotional tides have turned, words rarely change anything. What creates the strongest impact isn't an argument, it is the void. When you are no longer there to be predicted, you become an enigma, and the human mind is always stimulated by what it cannot fully control. After a breakup, you might see vague signals, a cryptic status update or a photo meant to trigger old memories. If you react immediately, you confirm that you are still watching, still waiting. But when you choose not to engage in those maneuvers, you aren't playing mind games. You are protecting your own peace. The lesson here is not to make someone panic over losing you. The lesson is to revoke the access you once gave away too easily. Only when your presence is no longer the default does it begin to be seen for its true worth. And if someone only appreciates you when you disappear, that speaks to a truth that must be faced head-on. Your silence is not a punishment. It is a boundary. But the more important question is, will this absence change them? Or will it simply help you see clearly that you deserve something better? In the next part, we will touch upon the final truth, not about winning someone back, but about whether you should even look back at all. 5. Accepting the truth and upgrading yourself. Ultimately, the truth doesn't lie in whether she is still watching you. It lies in what she chooses not to do. Men often cling to an illusion. If she's still viewing my stories, it means she still loves me. But someone who truly wants to stay will take action. They don't hide in silence, and they don't let opportunities slip away out of pride. Prolonged silence is not a code to be cracked. It is the answer. And as long as you continue to analyze every tiny signal, you are only delaying what you already know. Many men fall into a spiral of self-questioning. Why did she post a sad photo? Why did she view it but not message? But the more you search for meaning, the more you trade your self-respect for someone else's reaction. It is a losing bargain. The most liberating lesson is accepting that if you are no longer a priority, trying to become a backup option only makes you smaller. A man of value withdraws his attention and places his focus back on his own life. Moving on from the past isn't about replacing someone, it's about upgrading yourself. Focus on your physical strength, your intellect, your career, and your discipline. When you build a foundation solid enough, you no longer care who is watching you from the distance. And if one day she finally breaks the silence, it will no longer be what you've been waiting for, because you have moved on to a different chapter, one where you are more conscious and no longer need validation from the past. Silence is not a void that needs to be filled. It is the most thunderous answer you will ever receive. Do not deceive yourself with hollow hopes. If a woman truly valued you, she would be there, without hesitation, without tests, and absolutely without toxic subtext behind a screen. Do not waste a man's character decoding breadcrumbs or chasing ghosts on social media. Reclaim your attention. Pour your entire being into building your personal empire and upgrading yourself until you are untouchable. When you are still enough to walk away without needing an explanation, you have won back control of the game and stripped her of her final weapon. Thank you for walking with Stoic Journey. Hit subscribe, like, and share this journey to empower other men who are finding their way back to themselves. Leave a comment. I am the master of my emotions, as an affirmation of a winner's status. Remember, the man she once left no longer exists. The person you are now is a sharper version, a colder version, and permanently something she can never possess again. Do not look back. Let your absence become your final legacy, a roaring sound that haunts her mind forever.